And now, Michigan Reimagined with Chris Buck.
You know, a while back I hosted an interview about Opportunity Arts, a new affiliation for local artists to take advantage of. And here to discuss how things have ramped up locally is a friend of the show and the owner and director of Opportunity Arts, Mr. Mike Marriott. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So, you know, just for those who haven't really been paying attention to Opportunity Arts and maybe the art scene as much, you know, talk about Michigan's art scene. You know, how do we kind of rate and what is the art tenor out there these days, and where has it been and where's it headed?
Well, we are growing and quickly. There's always been an art history here in Michigan. Motown, yep. Right? You can go to anywhere in the world and they know Motown. And so I think this is the evolution of that, of what's coming next, and it's growing quite quickly. And I'm just excited about everything to see where it's coming in just the last 3 years.
Okay, well, we're recording this hopefully late pandemic.
Right.
It's March of 2021, and so the pandemic is a year old. And how has that affected the art scene?
It's interesting, right? Because basically, what it's done is to me, it's forced the creative community and the art community to leap forward by about a decade. Because basically, all these visual artists at the beginning of the pandemic were like, "Wait, what do we do? We're visual artists." And I said, "You're all Bob Ross now." Like that's where this is going. So I think from a technology standpoint, from all those numbers now that you can track that like sports has and things like that, where for advertisers and things like that, we now have those numbers in visual arts from a online platform that we didn't before, and those numbers have ramped up. So while yes, there's been a lot of loss in arts and culture jobs traditionally, artistic entrepreneurship is exploding.
So you would think a year ago, right. The arts, I remember I have a niece who is a fine arts major and is a stage performer, and she was shattered because she was newly out of college and was doing the whole like Broadway thing, off Broadway, obviously trying to get her name made and being on stage. And so closing these venues and not being able to do performance, and I don't even know what the state of Broadway actually is, but metaphorically, the idea of having a crowd get into an area to see something live, whether it's an art show or a rock concert or a stage production, that must have been really worrisome a year ago. But your attitude doesn't seem, now that we've gone through a year, is not negative and woe is me and everything is doom. You actually seem to be optimistic and impressed with where things have gone.
I'm quite optimistic because again we're a creative community, and
right.
And the whole idea is adjust on the fly, adapt in advance is kind of what we've been saying. Adapt in advance. You look at a show that we helped do the production and the promotion on, that Carnival of the Creatives that we did, the drive-through parking ramp show. That was created because of the pandemic. There wouldn't have been a show in a parking ramp with people driving through it, but that was something. It was the creative community and the artistic industry going, "Hey, we need to do something." So this is the something. The other thing that I talk about a lot with the artists that we work with and kind of the mindset we have is that whole, and I think you're going to hear and see it a lot more. After the plague came the Renaissance, and that is the mentality of,
okay,
yeah, this is starting to end, and people are going to crave people again, to be around each other. They're going to want to do these things. So as long as we adapt in advance and survive, get ready, because it's about to pop.
We'll get to that. So you talk about the creative, what was the one in the parking ramp?
Carnival of the Creatives.
Carnival of the Creatives. Okay. So I can see that as being an outward expression for the artists. Like, I'm jonesing to perform live in front of people, so let's get creative and make that happen. But what about the audience? I mean, is the audience equally craving that kind of, was that a good turnout? Did they feel like they got their money's worth, or just the emotional, spiritual,
Oh, it was great, because the one thing that was cool about that show was the cars would drive through with their windows up, obviously, so they were sealed. And the kids were all in their Halloween costumes, and you could just see the smiles on their faces. Because they didn't have and so you could actually see them smiling, and that was kind of the thing that was really cool about that. And I think you've seen people turn out online for online broadcasts and things like that. They're so people crave it. People have always craved the arts. I joke the Super Bowl is an art production with a football game in the middle of it, right?
Yep.
Because from the anthem to the halftime show to the everything, so people want it. Even though if they don't realize what they want, it's that whole thing of, everything is art, and that's where we're going. So
You mentioned that you feel like things maybe have fast forwarded a decade and a year because of the unusual circumstances. Now, I think of artists, flocking to New York City and Chicago and LA. But those cities almost, certainly they're going to continue to exist, but they've kind of fallen out of favor. There's articles outside of the arts community about how people are saying, well, if I'm going to work remotely, why am I paying $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom flat in Manhattan? Yep. I can do that from, Lancaster, Pennsylvania for $800 a month for the same space. How has that concept affected the arts community, and has that benefited Michigan?
I think it's definitely benefited Michigan and mid-sized cities. So you're like your Lansings, your Grand Rapids, your Kalamazoos, your Ann Arbors, your Detroits even, because one, it's virtually impossible to socially distance in a New York City or a Chicago because there's so many people. There's the same population of New York City and Michigan. That's the same number of people in each. So it's one of those things where I think now artists are realizing, hey, we can go anywhere. Now that we have the virtual platforms, I can, I don't have to, like you just said, I don't have to be in that big metropolitan area. New York is always going to be New York. Okay, yep. Let's not pretend it's always going to be New York. But I think it's leveled the playing field. Almost like what salary caps do in sports, where it's like everybody now has to, you know what I mean? Like
right.
You can't just outspend everybody. So I think that's kind of the analogy of, hey, we've got these mid-sized cities. Artists can come here. They can create their own thing now that they have all these virtual mediums to get everything out that they want to do. And then if they want to go to Chicago or New York or LA 2, 3, 4 times a year, totally feasible.
Yep.
So
and much more financially manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's spin over to Opportunity Arts. For those who don't know, can you give me a nutshell version of what the program is? What does Opportunity Arts provide to the artist?
Well, what we like to say is we're putting the business back in show business. And basically what we do is we provide promotional and administrative services for individual artists and arts organizations, which doesn't sound as cool as putting the business back in show business. But basically what we do is we work with artists on the business aspect. So we help promote events. We help work on if they have an initiative or a project that they want to do. We work with them on those things. So we've worked with Mila Lynn on Inktober. We've worked with Stefano Andriotti and Group 2 Saxophone Quartet on holiday productions. We put on some of our own events and things like that too, which is kind of a newer thing for us. So we help produce and promote Carnival of the Creatives. So those are kind of the different things that we do. We kind of ramp it up a little bit.
Right.
2 of my biggest inspirations in my industry are George M. Cohan, who's the man that owned Broadway, and P.T. Barnum.
Okay. You're a little bit of both.
I got a little bit, yeah.
I can see that.
I got a little bit. And so those are the kind of things now where, like, obviously the circus is gone, right? Because you can't have animals performing in those things. But what does the evolution of that look like? You still have trapeze artists. You still have jugglers. You still have poets and musicians and body painters and all of those things.
Right.
There's still an infrastructure. There's still a want for that. So we're helping all those artists and creatives, basically, to quote Spinal Tap, turn the amp up to 11. Right.
Okay. And I've heard you say, I think it was you, that you want to make the phrase "starving artist" just a joke. That artists deserve to be recognized. They deserve to be fairly compensated. It needs to be a profession that isn't just toil and strife and
right.
Poverty.
Yeah.
And so artists, in my estimation, and this is a fine thing because they're good at what they do. But you mentioned the business side. I did small business consulting for a while, and you've got people out there that are running very, very successful operations who really, really struggle with components. It's the chef that wants to own a restaurant. Right. It's like, I'm a great chef. I can put a plate of wonderful food on your table. I don't know how to price it. I don't know how to buy it. I don't know how to organize it. I don't know how to negotiate a lease and hire
I
staff.
don't want to talk to people about, I just want to be in my kitchen and cook.
Exactly. So, but the artists kind of have that same thing. It's like, I am so good and intense on my discipline. The idea of promotion and charging prices and getting a crowd and all that stuff outside of the demonstration of my work is the absence. And it sounds like you're filling that with Opportunity Arts.
Yeah. That's what we're trying to do. It's a lot of, it's a lot of partnering with artists and things like that. And it keeps the creative at the top. You know what I mean? They get to go at their pace. If they want to go 1,000 miles an hour, we can go 1,000 miles an hour. If they want to have a nice leisurely drive, we can go at that speed too.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the nice thing about it as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the successes you've had over the last 12 months? Because I do follow you on social media, and I'm impressed with, it's just the sheer volume of, hey, look who's joined our squad, look who's joined our team. And then immediately I seem to see a lot of activity around those artists that you introduce because you help them get their events publicized or you hype their art. So.
We've had the opportunity to work with a lot of really great artists. You look at somebody like Amila Lynn. I'm gonna list a list of names now so that people can go back and listen to this 20 years from now and go, wow, they were all on the same roster. But you look at Amila Lynn, a Group 2 saxophone quartet, a Tori Gray, a Sarah Sanders. These are going to be household names in the arts in 20 years. There's no doubt in my mind. I know their hustle. I know their work ethic. I know what they can produce. We are unapologetically calling Opportunity Arts the most talented artistic roster in Michigan since Motown, period.
Wow.
We believe that. And it's the artists going out and doing that work and working together. That's the other thing that I think has kind of evolved since the first time we ever started talking together, Chris, was these artists now, like, they collaborate with each other and they partner with each other and they cheer each other on. And I said it's like a baseball team where you get a home run hitter and that person hits a home run. And the next batter's like, well, I'm going to hit mine in the upper deck. And then the next batter comes up and is like, well, I guess I have to hit mine out of the park now. Right. And that's the mentality, but they're all just rooting each other on. And so, 20 years from now, when you look at those, you're going to go, it's the same thing that happened with Motown. Stevie Wonder and Smokey Robinson and Diana, they were all kids from the neighborhood.
Right. Yes, they were.
And so now you go anywhere in the world, though, those are household names. There's no doubt in my mind, 20 years from now, these are going to be household names.
Impressive. And you talk about collaboration. Tori Gray and Mila Lynn did Inktober together, right? They collaborated musically and artistically to kind of put together a third dimension of appreciation of their art.
Yep.
That was fantastic to see.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit more of that is going to be coming.
Yep. And then the other thing, too, is you look at somebody like Amila who tries to outdo herself, like the next project and the next project and the next project. It's like, I look at some of them like Tori and Mila and others and go, gosh, what's 7 projects from now going to look like? That's, it's exciting to me to see all this going that way.
So you're saying basically that Michigan has attracted a lot of these artists and the reputation's kind of getting out there. And so it's the wave is coming in fast.
Yeah.
So what can Michigan do to make sure we're ready for all this? Do we have everything these artists are going to need in order to retain them?
I think we're building it. We need to, I think the state needs to, Michigan needs to accept the fact that it is the state of the arts and just go with that. Because that's what's going to attract people here. We just had a Stefano Andreotti who's toured Italy and has won awards internationally for opera. He's left New York and moved to Michigan because of things we've talked about in past podcasts. The centralized location, the being able to be everywhere. He wants to be able to be a part of something that he can create. And now we're actually seeing, it's one thing to think about something and be like, this would be cool if it happened. It's different when it begins to happen. And so now you even have, as we speak, artists leaving cities like New York that are the traditional art cities, and they're coming to places like Lansing and Grand Rapids and places like that to go, okay, I want to pursue my career here because I can go out there and do whatever I want. And there's not the barriers, as many barriers as there is in the larger cities. And so I think if we just need to be ready to welcome everybody, and embrace them. And, I love the Michigan the one we all have on a car. It says native.
Yeah.
And it has the Michigan symbol. We need one that says adopted. Because that's going to be what's coming in is all of these artists that are now going to come to Michigan and be a part of this. And I think Michigan is the one thing I love about the people of Michigan here is that my wife and I moved from New York. We were welcomed in. You know what I mean? There's not everywhere. I always say it's like being at a new school and everyone at the school is like, come sit at our table. That's the feeling you get from people from Michigan. And so I think that's going to attract a lot of artists too is like, hey, they want us here. And so it's
affordable and there's support.
Right.
And there's cool things to do.
So
and I'm
much.
right between Toronto and Chicago and Detroit and
you could literally you could live in a place like Lansing and have a season in Chicago, 4 shows a year, do a show quarterly, you have a season in Chicago. And so, this is why I'm optimistic. People are like, why are you so optimistic right now? Like everything. And I'm like, this is why I'm optimistic because I'm seeing what's coming next. And again, the Western Renaissance is on its way. So, why not start it here?
All right. Well, you know what? While we still have a little bit of time left, talk about how people can get in touch with you to learn more. OpportunityArts.org.
That's the best place to reach us. My moniker is the Arts Promoter. So if you just email theartspromoter@gmail.com, that'll go directly to me. If you're an artist, creative, business owner, anybody who has a passion for the arts, get in touch with us, and your world will get a whole lot bigger.
And arts, well, we've got a couple seconds. I mean, we're talking music, we're talking physical art. I think a lot of people hear art and they think people paint on canvas.
Right.
But it's music, it's books, right? I mean, you got poetry.
We have writers, body painters, musicians, everything. I always joke, you show up and we'll bring the circus. So.
Right on. Mike Marriott from Opportunity Arts, thanks for joining me again today.
You bet, Chris. It's always fun.